Caitlin Clark didn't issue ultimatums or go public. She simply made it known. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hostay. And they did. In a league where rookies are expected to adapt, not dictate, Clark is quietly flipping that script. Her push to preserve locker room chemistry over cap space wasn't just a preference. It was a move that forced Indiana's hand. The Fever didn't just listen, they acted. For a 21-year-old to shape roster outcomes so decisively says less about boldness and more about leverage. She has it, and she's using it to build a team on her terms. This isn't a feel-good leadership moment. It's a turning point in how power flows in the WNBA. Clark's intervention sent a clear signal that stars aren't waiting years to earn influence anymore. They're asserting it now and effectively. Cunningham and Hull may not headline box scores, but in Clark's vision, they're part of the system she believes can win. That kind of loyalty-driven roster shaping mirrors what NBA icons have done for years. The difference? Clark's doing it from day one. The Fever didn't just retain players. They surrendered precedent. Caitlin Clark just did something that has the entire WNBA talking. And no, it wasn't another Logo 3. This time, she didn't just change the scoreboard. She changed the team. Sources across the league are buzzing. Because the Indiana Fever, under pressure from their rookie phenom, just made a move that says loudly, Caitlin Clark runs this. Behind the scenes, while most were focused on box scores and buzzer beaters, Clark was doing something far more calculated, making sure Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull stayed on the roster. Two players have become more than just teammates to her. They're allies, glue players, and apparently deal breakers. The Fever were looking at roster shakeups, financial reasons, strategic pivots. You know the drill. Cunningham and Hull weren't guaranteed anything. And under normal circumstances, they probably wouldn't have made it through the cut. But this wasn't a normal decision. This was Caitlin Clark pulling strings in a way that rookies are rarely, if ever, allowed to do. She stepped in, not just to shoot the ball, but to shape the team around her. That's not an exaggeration. Internally, there was mounting pressure. Management was weighing contracts, minutes, salary cap gymnastics. But Clark made it clear. Sophie and Lexie stay. And just like that, they stayed. This wasn't about friendship. It was about chemistry, loyalty, and cohesion. Cunningham brings grit. Hull brings intensity. Both are players Clark trusts. And trust, according to Clark, is more valuable than any cap space or stat sheet projection. She's not just building a team. She's building a culture. Think about that. One of the youngest players in the league, in her rookie season, just flex enough power to override a front office on roster decisions. That's the kind of influence usually reserved for grizzled MVPs and Hall of Fame veterans. Clark hasn't even finished her first season, and she's already altering the power structure of an entire franchise. This isn't just about Indiana, either. This is about the WNBA itself. Because what Caitlin Clark just did, that sets a precedent. A player-driven precedent. It says stars don't just play, they decide. And it's shaking the league. Now, some people might see this and ask, is that too much power? Should a player, even one as transformative as Clark, be dictating roster decisions before she's played a full season? But here's the thing. The Fever didn't just roll over. They saw the bigger picture. They realized that if you have a generational star, someone who's single-handedly driving attendance, TV ratings, and national interest, you listen. Because keeping Clark happy doesn't just help the locker room.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
It helps the bottom line. She's not just leading in points. She's leading in presence. And let's be honest, this isn't a random power grab. Clark's not out here stacking the roster with her college buddies for nostalgia. She's making calculated, smart moves. Cunningham and Hull may not be lighting up highlight reels every night, but they matter. They're the glue, the players who know the system, hold people accountable, and elevate the locker room. Clark knows it. She feels it, and she fought for it. It's a level of emotional intelligence and strategic thinking that we don't usually expect from rookies. But that's what separates stars from leaders. Anyone can drop 30 points. Not everyone can hold a team together through a messy rebuild. And that's exactly what Clark is doing. There was a real chance the Fever could have gone the other direction, made the cold, clean decision, cut the vets, free up cap space, bet on cheaper prospects or future picks. But Clark made clear that talent alone doesn't win games. Chemistry does. Cohesion does. Loyalty does. She's building something sustainable, something with roots, not just for this season, but for every season after. And look at the timing. This all went down right before an off-season that's already looking volatile. League negotiations are looming. There's chatter of potential instability, even lockouts. Tensions between ownership and players are simmering. And in the middle of that storm, Clark's decision sends a message. Stability matters. She's not just thinking about her box score. She's thinking about the locker room, about trust, about what it takes to win when the cameras are off and the pressure's high. She wants to build, not just compete. That kind of leadership, at 21, is almost unheard of. Clark's influence in Indiana now resembles what you'd see from NBA titans. Think LeBron shaping front offices, or Steph Curry fighting to keep his core intact. But this is the WNBA, where players traditionally haven't had that kind of leverage. Until now, what she's doing is rewriting the player-manager relationship in real time. And make no mistake, this wasn't some public outcry or passive suggestion. Clark didn't tweet her opinion and hope for the best. She made her preferences known. Quietly, strategically, but firmly. That's the part that's maybe most impressive. She didn't go scorched earth. No drama, no ultimatums, no leaked threats to walk. Just influence, applied with precision. And the Fever listened. They understood that keeping their star happy was step one. But more importantly, they saw that Clark's request wasn't self-serving. It was team-serving. This wasn't about power for the sake of power. It was about winning. And winning starts with trust. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie are now more than just players on a roster. They're a symbol of loyalty, of what it means to build something that lasts, of a team that listens to its leader and values the people who make it all click. That's what Clark just cemented. She's not the first star to want influence, but she's the first to actually get it this early and use it well. No theatrics, no chaos, just quiet authority. It's a blueprint for what player empowerment in the WNBA could look like. Not just drama and headlines, but actual smart influence. The kind that brings stability. The kind that wins games. The kind that earns respect. And now, every team's watching. If you're a GM or coach in this league, you just saw a rookie steer a franchise. You saw loyalty win over finance. You saw chemistry beat out cold analytics. And you saw a player become a stakeholder, not just a jersey on the court. That's the new standard. This is what evolution looks like. A cultural shift in women's basketball, where agency and influence aren't reserved for the elite few after 10 years of service. Where young stars get a seat at the table, and where their voices matter. It's not just about points per game anymore. It's about presence, leadership, vision, and Caitlin Clark just checked every box. So now the question is, where does it go from here? Do other stars follow suit? Does the league embrace this shift or try to rein it in? Will this spark a wave of roster moves driven by chemistry and loyalty over cap spreadsheets? No one knows yet. But one thing's clear. The WNBA will never be the same. Because Caitlin Clark just made a move that wasn't flashy, but game-changing. She forced the front office to think twice, to look beyond numbers, and to trust the instinct of a player who's already proving she sees the court and the business better than anyone expected. Her actions speak louder than any viral highlight. If you're a fan of the game, you just witness a new chapter in how power works in professional sports. And honestly, it's about time. If you're into this kind of breakdown, where drama meets strategy and the game gets real off the court, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss the next meltdown, power play, or PR disaster. And drop a comment. Do you think Caitlin Clark went too far? Or is this exactly the kind of leadership the WNBA needs? Let's hear it. And here's the kicker. The ripple effect from Caitlin Clark's move is already starting to spread. Other teams, they're watching the Fever like hawks now. Because what just happened in Indiana isn't staying in Indiana. You don't drop a bomb like rookie influences roster moves without the rest of the league taking notes. Executives, coaches, agents, they're all recalibrating, wondering how much power their own stars might try to wield, wondering if their locker room dynamics are next. Because once you break the mold, the old rules don't apply anymore. The WNBA, until now, has largely operated under a more traditional, top-down system. Management makes the decisions. Players play. Rookies, no matter how hyped, are expected to fall in line, prove themselves, and wait their turn before getting any real say. Clark didn't wait. She didn't need to. She came in with national attention, record-shattering college stats, a media machine behind her, and now, clear influence in the boardroom. That's not just rare. That's unheard of. And that's why this moment is bigger than just Cunningham and Hull's contracts. It's a turning point. Let's call it what it is. This is the start of a player-empowered WNBA era. One where athletes, especially those with visibility and marketability like Clark, can advocate for more than their own playing time, where the weight of their presence extends to the decisions being made behind closed doors. And yes, it's a calculated risk by the Fever. Giving a rookie this much sway isn't a small move, but it's also a signal that they're all in. They're building the franchise around her, on the court, off the court, and everywhere in between. That level of buy-in, that changes how a team functions. It's not just about the front office anymore. Now it's a partnership. Management and player, executive decisions, and on-the-ground insight from the court. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. Because no one knows what makes a team tick better than the people actually in the locker room. Caitlin Clark isn't trying to run the whole show. She's trying to make sure the show works. That the team doesn't implode under pressure. That she's surrounded by players she trusts to show up every day with fire, commitment, and zero ego. Because let's be real, this league isn't just fighting for wins. It's fighting for growth. And that's what makes this so fascinating. Clark isn't just positioning herself as a leader in the huddle. She's positioning herself as a key piece in the league's future structure, a stakeholder in how it develops, adapts, and treats its stars. The implications here go way beyond just Indiana. For younger players watching this, it's a blueprint, a playbook on how to assert influence without being messy, how to advocate for a team culture without burning bridges, how to value loyalty and leadership without being labeled a diva or a problem. Clark didn't throw a tantrum. She didn't blast anyone publicly. She moved quietly, effectively, and got what she wanted. That's powerful. And in a league that's still pushing for broader respect, media attention, and structural growth, that kind of internal player-led stability matters. A lot. Now let's talk about Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull for a second. Because this wasn't just some emotional favor. These aren't fringe players hanging onto the roster by a thread. They're competitors. They're role players with value. Cunningham is known for her edge. She's physical, vocal, and gritty. The kind of player you love to have on your side and hate to play against. Hull? Defensive energy for days. Tough, adaptable, and totally bought in. They're not flashy, but they're foundational. And that's why Clark backed them. Because what she's trying to build in Indiana isn't a super team or a hype train. It's a real team, one with identity, trust, and cohesion. Think about the best teams in history, any league. They're not just collections of stars. They're groups that click, that grind together, that know where each other will be on every possession without needing to say a word. That doesn't happen with constant roster churn. That happens with consistency. And Caitlin Clark, at 21, already knows that. She didn't push to save her friends. She pushed to save the chemistry. And that's what makes this move so genius. It wasn't about controlling everything. It was about controlling what matters most, the environment. She knows that her own game, no matter how spectacular, won't mean anything if the locker room is fractured and unstable. She needs a support system. Veterans who bring accountability, not drama. Players who hustle, communicate, and lead in the gaps. Cunningham and Hull fit that mold. And Clark knew it. So she stepped in. And now, the Fever are sending a message without ever making an official announcement. We believe in player input, We trust our stars' judgment. And we're building around more than just a shooting percentage. We're building around values. And you know what else this proves? Clark isn't afraid of the responsibility that comes with stardom. A lot of players shy away from that kind of influence. They'll say they don't want to get involved, that it's not their job. But Clark, she embraced it, quietly, strategically, like someone who's already thinking 5 years ahead. That's leadership. And while some might argue that giving this kind of power to one player is dangerous, it's not if that player uses it well, if they know when to push and when to pull back, if they value the team over their own brand, if they care about wins more than headlines. Clark checks all those boxes. She's not building a cult of personality. She's building a culture. And she's doing it while the league watches her every move. And let's not ignore the broader symbolism here. For years, the WNBA has battled outdated narratives about player passivity, about being under the thumb of league politics or rigid systems. This, right here, is a counterpunch. A young female athlete, fresh off her rookie initiation, stepping into a leadership role that transcends basketball, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it with her play, with her presence, with her understanding of what a winning team actually looks like. That's a new kind of power. A smarter kind, and it's one that's going to reshape how other young stars approach their roles going forward. So what now? We wait. We watch. We see if this is a spark that lights the fire league-wide. Because once you give one player influence, and she uses it well, it's only a matter of time before others follow. The question is no longer, should players have this kind of say? It's why shouldn't they? If they're the ones carrying franchises, selling out arenas, growing viewership, and delivering results, shouldn't they have a voice in how the team is run? Shouldn't they get to decide who they trust to go into battle with? Caitlin Clark just showed that yes, they should. And now, the balance of power in the WNBA has officially shifted. Don't be surprised if this becomes a norm. If teams start consulting stars more frequently, if locker room culture becomes a higher priority than cap space, if fit starts to outweigh flashy trades or analytic spreadsheets. Because at the end of the day, talent wins games, but trust wins championships. And Caitlin Clark, she gets that. So if you're still sleeping on how big this moment is, wake up. The rookie just changed the rules. Because let's be real, what just happened doesn't just raise eyebrows. It raises the ceiling for what WNBA stars can be. This league has been fighting for visibility, credibility, and investment for years. And now, Caitlin Clark has arrived not just as a player, but as a brand, a leader, and, let's be honest, a disruptor. She's not only attracting record-breaking crowds and attention, she's shifting the way power operates inside a franchise. And the ripple effects? Oh, they're coming. Front offices across the league are already rethinking the old dynamics. The days of players simply staying in their lane are gone. If you're drafting a generational star now, you're not just getting a scorer, you're getting a stakeholder. Someone with expectations beyond play calls and practice times. Someone who wants a voice in the direction of the team. And if you're a team that doesn't give that voice, you might lose your stars altogether. What Clark did with the Fever wasn't just about asserting control. It was about preserving momentum. Think about it. The Fever have been irrelevant for years. They've cycled through coaches, failed rebuilds, and draft picks that never quite hit. Then Clark arrives, and boom, suddenly they matter. People care. People watch. They sell out arenas. They make headlines. That doesn't happen without a culture shift. So when the Fever front office even considered breaking up that fragile chemistry, Clark acted fast, because she knows something they clearly needed reminding of. You don't mess with a good thing when you're finally getting traction. She knew how quickly things could fall apart. Cut the wrong players. Mess with the locker room vibe. Bring in someone who throws off the rhythm. And suddenly, all the progress evaporates. So she stepped in. Not loudly, not publicly, but definitively. And for a league that's still shaping its identity, that kind of initiative sends a powerful message. That women's sports aren't just about following orders and grinding quietly. They're about leading, strategizing, speaking up when it counts. That's why what Caitlin Clark just did is so monumental. because it wasn't about ego. It was about building something real. She's not just trying to win now. She's trying to sustain it. And here's where it gets really interesting. Her influence wasn't just respected. It was acted on. Management listened. And that means this isn't just a story about Clark's power. It's about the shift in how teams operate. About a franchise choosing chemistry over cold financial math. Choosing stability over roster churn. You can almost feel the old school GM sweating because they know the game has changed. You can't just run the numbers and expect stars to fall in line anymore. You've got to collaborate. You've got to trust your players, especially when your player is someone like Caitlin Clark, who isn't just a hooper, but a force. And again, this isn't just about keeping a couple of mid-tier players. This is about defining what the Fever stand for going forward. Do they want to be just another franchise chasing the next trade? Or do they want to be a destination? A place where stars know their voices matter? A place that prioritizes loyalty, chemistry, and leadership? Well, the answer's clear now. Clark set the tone, and the Fever followed it. Now, other stars, present and future, are watching. Young players coming up in college are paying attention because for years, women in sports have been told, be grateful, play hard, stay quiet. But now, they're seeing what happens when you step up and say, no, we're doing it my way. And it works. Clark didn't need a media campaign. She didn't throw anyone under the bus. She moved smart, with intention, and she got the results she wanted, not just for herself, but for her team. That's what separates hype from legacy. Because let's be honest, plenty of players have a talent. Not everyone has the vision, or the guts, or the emotional intelligence to lead like this early. She's 21, and she's already rewriting the handbook. So if you thought Caitlin Clark was just here to break scoring records and rack up Rookie of the Year votes, think again. She's here to build, to shape, to lead. And the Fever? They're lucky they're listening. Because if they hadn't, if they had let go of Cunningham and Hull and ignored Clark's insight, that locker room could have gone south fast. And we'd be having a very different conversation right now. Instead, they leaned in. They said yes to their star. And in doing so, they said yes to a whole new way of doing things. Player influence isn't a threat to the league. It's the future of it. And Caitlin Clark? She's not just part of that future. She's defining it. If you made it this far, you already know this was a seismic moment. So don't just scroll away. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who still thinks rookies have to earn their voice. And let's talk about it in the comments. Is Caitlin Clark setting a new gold standard? Or is this too much power too soon? Subscribe for more deep dives just like this. We got eyes on every twist, flop, and front office fumble.